Hello. Good evening and welcome. My name is Mike Farrell. I'm here as a friend of I'm here as a friend of yours. I'm here as a friend of the man you came to see. I was fortunate enough 15 years ago to be part of a delegation of American citizens to the then Soviet Union. And before we went into the country, the group of us gathered, and among the individuals going was a very tall man wearing floppy clown clothes and a weird hat, and he had hair down his shoulders. And I thought to myself, oh my God, what have I gotten into? If we get into this country, we'll never get out. The fact was, Patch stole my heart as he did the heart of the people of the Soviet Union and the people of the rest of the delegation. Did somebody say louder? Oh, sorry. I thought I was talking right into it. Is that better? Okay. Hi, my name is Mike Farrell. You are, obviously you know, you're here, you're in for a treat simply being here. How many of you saw the motion picture, Patch Adams? Okay, that'll be $1 apiece for the producer who never got any money out of it. No, that's a joke. Patch is, as you will see, and as you know from watching Robin try to portray him, Patch is an extraordinary human being. He is a giant, he is a revolutionary, he is a medical doctor who believes in the healing power of love and attention. He is exactly the prescription that this nation and this world need today. He is able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. He is faster than a speeding locomotive, more powerful. It goes the other way, doesn't it? More powerful than a speeding locomotive, faster than a speeding bullet. He is my friend, and I am thrilled that you are going to meet him. Please welcome Dr. Hunter Patch Adams.
You're messy, Mike. Hi. Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, I stand backstage going, these people are here for peace and justice. And the idea that this many people would turn out on a weeknight for peace. Is this a weeknight? On a weeknight for peace and justice, it gives me a lot of hope. Thank you for coming. How we're going to kind of arrange the evening is that originally I was asked, they were going to show the movie, and then I was going to talk about the movie after. The movie's too long to do that, and you would miss the actual person. And so one thing we have as an offering, and if you'd like to, we did settle on this, and that was, you know how studios sometimes make the making of a movie, where the producer and director, actor, and myself maybe interpret and say some things about the film. Would you all like to see that? Well, then that's what we'll do. Can we show that, or the people here? We can show that, right? Okay, great. So we'll show that, and then I'll share some ideas with you. And then what we'll do is that I want to talk with you, because I'll be right up front with you here. My goal here is, this isn't a job for me. You know, as long as there is violence and injustice in the world, then I need to be here, and I need to find a language that makes you want to work for it every day, all day long, until it's in our lives. So let's see this little video clip, and then we'll come on and get deep. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Let me see everybody. You're my food. What I'd like to do is tell you a little bit about our work. I think most people know our work through the film, and the film for me is kind of simple. So I'd like to tell you what I'm about medically and a little bit about our work. I'd like to maybe show you a moment of clowning, and I'd like to give you an idea of the consequences of this movie, which have been vast, and then see what you want to talk about. I entered medicine 32 years ago to use it as a vehicle for social change. I'm a political activist. I want things different. I think it's up to me. I'm a nerd, so when I entered medical school, I knew I'd have a lot of free time. I used that time to study the history of healthcare delivery all over the world and through history. I also did a lot of voracious interviewing. I am a voracious interviewer. Just to give you an idea, when I left the mental hospital at the age of 18, I spent an hour or two a day for 2 years, uninterruptedly, calling wrong numbers to practice talking with people. What I wanted to do, since I was a math nerd and interested in whole systems and cybernetics, I thought, I know, when I graduated in 1971, I could create a medical model that addressed every single problem of care delivery in one model. I think even the least connected person in this country knows there's whopper problems with health care delivery. They were all glaring to me then. Now they're practically neon. So what that meant is that when I graduated in 1971, 20 adults with our children, 3 of us physicians, moved into a large 6-bedroom house, and we said we were a hospital. We were open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for all manner of medical problems from birth to death. We ran this pilot for 12 years. During that time, we had 500 to 1,000 people in our home a month, with 5 to 50 overnight guests a night. I'm sure you can picture a 6-bedroom house with 20 adults and their children living there, and 5 to 50 overnight guests a night, and what that might have meant. If you could understand that those guests were needy and lonely and lonely and needy, and lonely and needy and needy and lonely, and that they brought their medical problems with them, you might imagine what our life might have been like. Never in our 29-year history have we ever charged money for what we've done. We are a political act to recreate community. We cannot conceive of a community of our design that didn't care for its citizens, not out of guilt and responsibility, but out of the raging delight it is to help somebody who is your fellow. In that same light, so we wanted to eliminate the idea of debt in the medical interaction, you understand. It wasn't that we wanted to be free for poor people. We wanted people to get care and not have one tiny thought that they owed anybody for anything. In that same vein, we've never had anything to do with insurance, Medicaid, Medicare, Blue Cross. Insurance companies are garbage, and we'll have nothing to do with garbage in our practice. We've never had anything to do with malpractice insurance. When you carry malpractice insurance, you're telling your patients, I'm afraid of you and I don't trust you. So you live your entire professional career in fear and mistrust. Fear and mistrust in any human relationship sucks. In medicine, it has destroyed the heart of it. We make mistakes. Every single health professional makes many mistakes. It is an extremely imperfect science. We need that right. We didn't have people sign waivers. We're the politics of vulnerability. I will not be afraid of people. They cannot hurt me. We wanted to humanize healthcare, and we looked in healthcare delivery and said, how can we be human? Where are we human? And in what we saw, that we're most human in our friendship. So our ideal patient became that person who wanted a deep, intimate friendship with us for life. We knew in that kind of intimacy that great medicine can happen, particularly at a deathbed or intractable pain or chronic unsolved medical problems. That indeed the true joy of life anyway was the richness of intimacy that we had with other people. And that the beautiful thing about being a health professional is you can have that on the first instant if you're comfortable and compassionate with the person. Where do we do friendship? We do it in our home, so our home became a hospital. As a family doctor, in order to develop those kind of friendships, my initial interviews with patients were 3 or 4 hours long. If you can get any sense of my intensity, you may have an idea of how much I probe in those 3 or 4 hours. I want to know you better than anyone has ever known you. I want to know everything you never wanted anyone to know. In fact, I want to go to your house. The greatest tragedy of medicine in this century is the loss of the house call. You can never, ever know a person a fraction in your office that you can know them when you go to their home. And you can picture your home. When I make a house call on you, I open every drawer, go in every closet. I'm not just a doctor, I'm a voyeur. I really did open every drawer. I went in attics. You'd be surprised what people have in their attics that they haven't told you about. I wanted to stay for dinner. I wanted to know every book on their shelf, every record on their shelf. I wanted to know who was in every picture, because I knew it was important. When I spent that kind of time with patients, I found out what the poetry, drama, and fiction all over the world has been saying extremely loudly and with great expertise in this century, and that is that the vast majority of our adult population doesn't have a clue about a day-to-day vitality for life. That what did it matter if we cut out a tumor if their life still sucked? Oh, great, good outcome. 10 more years of a life that sucks. And that's why from our very beginning we did mix medicine with performing arts and crafts and agriculture and nature, education, recreation, and social service. Because we didn't want people with normal lab values and clear x-rays. We wanted people who loved their life for who they were in their life. It was another reason they came into our home. We also, to celebrate diversity, even though it was against the law, but I suppose we've broken a few laws, and that is that we wanted all the healing arts to work together. And so from our very beginning in 1971, we have always mixed allopathic medicine, which is what an MD is, with chiropractic and acupuncture and homeopathic and naturopathic, herbal medicine, Ayurvedic, anthroposophic, body work, faith healing, all by working together, not with a doctor over them, but with the humility that we all need to know that we need all of the ideas. The only idea we don't need is violence. Everything else we can find a way to work together with. We couldn't think of a reason to do violence. To deal with the issue of burnout and the celebration of life, we became the first silly hospital in history. You know, I'm a nut, really. I'm a nut that became a doctor. I was an actual nut in that I was in a mental hospital and signed out against medical advice, so I'm still a nut on the loose. It is only this invisible shield that protects you from me here. Maybe I'll interrupt for a moment and give you an idea what that means by exhibiting myself. Okay, this is the, let's say, blend in with the general population way I walk around, all right? However, I want to show you the 5 stations of the pants, kind of a spiritual thing. This is the conservative, you're at the mall and you're not going to play look. But let's go to the second version. Now here we have a cute little skirt. Now if you're at the shopping mall and you take the edges of that skirt thusly and walk with a little step and smile, things start to happen. And that's fine if you're mellow. But let's say you want to get really naughty. You pull them up all the way. This is position number 3. Now you're clearly out of the closet. You invite the question, why? And here you understand I'm not clowning, I'm just pulling my pants up. And you don't have to do much. If I just stand next to a person there at the shopping mall, things will happen. Now, this is position number 4. This is really good at a grocery store. Maybe because you have your own sack with you. I love people. I can't tell you really how much I love people and humanity. I've probably had as much human interaction as any person has ever had with people. I've not been out of the company of people in almost all my life. And people are beautiful. 100% of the people, if I go up to somebody and says, excuse me, would you put in a couple of heads of lettuce there for me? 100% of people put those 2 heads of lettuce in there. Maybe they think I'm disabled. Now, I don't want you to think that I've tried this 1 or 2 cute times. I've clowned every day for 36 years. I am a bad boy. Now, the series drops dramatically there at the produce department when you come back with, I think I only wanted 1. But you know, I have to tell you that 3 people in 100 will reach in there and get that other head of lettuce out. You know whether you would be one of those 3 people. And finally, there's total submersion. This is really good at a bus stop. After all, there's a high turnover of people. And whoever was there when you came up is gone, and you become a breathing sculpture. One of the things I find interesting is that people will come up and stand right next to you, and for some reason they think you can't hear anything. I can't even begin to tell you how naughty I am. I have probably pushed naughtiness out in public all over the world as much as anyone ever has. And it's the dearest part of my life. Nothing I love more than to go to the heart of the worst kind of suffering, because I know my clown character, and I might show him to you later, is fearless and is able to comfort no matter what the situation is. I've clowned on death row in Trinidad for men who were hung 3 days later. I've taken clowns into war in Bosnia, and this last May, took a group into the Kosovo refugee camps in Macedonia. This is my idea of a vacation, to see and feel where pain is and to go there. And that's what I wanted to do with medicine. I wanted the first silly hospital because I knew I wasn't going to pay anybody anything, and I wasn't going to give them privacy. There had to be some reason they wanted to work there more than a day. And I think it was by being silly even more than the loving that made it that way. Our first 9 years, not a single staff person left, and they were working round the clock. After all, it was their home. They made no money. In fact, they had to work outside jobs to pay to practice medicine. For 29 years, that's the only kind of medicine I've known. I've always paid to be a doctor. And I say that because the unencumbered giving of oneself to another in medicine is worth paying for. The return I get in the high of loving and caring for people is worth paying for. And people have a far harder time giving up their privacy than their money. And yet our first 9 years we didn't lose anybody. And I think the reason is why, because that we were goofy. Fun to live with, fun to die with. I'm really fun on your last day. Hell, let's take a poll here, all right? Now, you may not think fun death is one of the things you want to think about, but let's given the fact that probably everyone in this room will die. How many of you would like it to be fun? Raise your hand. Yeah, I'm there for you. You know, we did barf-alongs with bulimics. We didn't care how far we had to go to bring humor into a complicated situation. In those 12 years, we saw 15,000 people. Not a single person gave us a single donation. During that time, I tried 1,400 foundation grant applications and got turned down 1,400 times. For 29 years, we have been the only project in America addressing the problems comprehensively that we're facing in medicine, and we only applied to foundations who said they wanted to address healthcare delivery issues. And never has a corporation, the government, or anybody who publicly says they were concerned about healthcare delivery issues ever answered one of our letters. It's understandable. We're not a mellow alternative. You know, and it's been just as hard to get donations from the left or right or the in-between. Most everyone who loves our project has never given us a donation. I mean, you can imagine how idealistic it is to build a hospital and insist we will not carry malpractice insurance. That's going to prevent almost everybody from giving us a donation because they'll think it's irresponsible. And after 12 years and not a single donation, and realizing we're a political act to help try to stimulate ideas for models in healthcare delivery, that we had to build a hospital. That as long as we were just doing our cute, crazy frontier medicine, it wasn't going to change systems, and that's what we're about. And so we broke the only rule in our history we've broken, and that is we went public. I have no regard for the media whatsoever. Puh, to the media. And yet I knew that pop culture is the currency of our modern life, and so that I'd have to make a Faustian contract with a thing that I'm actually trying to shut down in order to try to build our hospital. So we went public, and we knew then we'd have to stop seeing patients, which is what we did 16 years ago. And for the last 16 years, we've slowly climbed the fame and fortune ladder. where I have slowly gotten our word out. And of course, they never cared about our ideas. It was always the People magazine mentality. So there's never in our 29-year history been a look at our ideas in any media of any kind, just to show you how much it reinforced our reason never to go to the media. Never. They'll spend hundreds of inches of articles in the New York Times complaining about the problems, and those authors are never willing to put 1 inch of idea into a group trying to do the answers to those problems. In those if we see the first 12 years of our experiment as the patient being an individual or a family, which is the traditional way of thinking of medicine, in the last 16 years, our patient has been communities and societies. So what started out as a hospital in West Virginia, which is the least served state in America, what's happened is we're now active in over 40 countries, building orphanages in Russia and doing work all over the world because no one would fund us here. In that time, in order to connect up and be ready for when we are open, I've probably spoken at 90 of our medical schools, never once invited by the medical school, always invited by the students. I've spoken at all of our naturopathic, most of our chiropractic and osteopathic schools, and many of the other schools of healing that are in this country and other countries. That we've been spending our time connecting up to environmental projects all over the world, to trying to understand the problems of our society and how it is that we're such an unhealthy society, and what we can do practically or impractically to change it. All this time trying to build a hospital, and before the movie, all this time being practically unfunded. So few people have given us a donation in our 29-year history that I can almost give their names. And I include the small donations as well. Still, as the only project in America addressing the problems of care delivery, never as the answer, you understand, but simply as a stimulant to dream big and to imagine what your ideas for solutions might be. It's been a fabulous, breathtaking journey. I've never known one moment of burnout in it. I've never once compromised myself in the practice of medicine. I can't remember the last time I did something I didn't want to do. 19 years ago, we bought 310 acres in Pocahontas County, West Virginia. We did not have a philanthropist like the movie indicated. We have a beautiful piece of land with waterfalls and caves, 4-acre lake, a mountain of hardwood trees, rich bottomland that's had no chemicals in it for 19 years. We're building there a 40-bed rural community hospital, 40 beds for patients, surgery, OB/GYN, pediatrics, internal medicine, family practice, psychiatry, and all the complementary kinds of care. 60 beds for staff and beds for their families. It will be our home. 40 beds for people like yourself, or medical students, or guests who will come there and on their vacation or whatever time that they're there, offer what they offer. So it could be an ophthalmologist and their whole surgical team to come and do some ophthalmology work there, or a string quartet. It doesn't matter to us. All of them provide great healing value in what we're doing, and I've collected all of them. Our hospital will have 30,000 square feet devoted to the arts. Art is center focus of human culture, unlike the way our government or our society treats it. And so art will be very much a part of our life. It will be our life. We will have a very complicated and involved project of sustainable agriculture and be what the environmental movement is calling an eco-village, which is a way humans might live that's healthy for ourselves and our future. All of these things being medicine to us. We'll have a school for our children, because you can't attract health professionals to rural West Virginia unless providing them education, and we are very concerned with education in this country. I'm particularly concerned about education because we pay our sports figures millions of dollars, and we pay our school teachers nothing, and I spit on that. We've taught our children to admire Michael Jordan, who gets tens of millions of dollars from a company that does child labor in the Far East, that kills and abuses children. And that's what we want our children to admire, not a school teacher who busts his or her ass day in and day out for practically nothing and is denigrated and paid nothing for it. And that needs to change in our society. We will operate that hospital on less than 5% of the national average for a comparable sized hospital, eliminating 95% of the cost by making it a service and not a business. To give you an idea, our doctors will work full-time, 60 or more hours a week, and their annual pay will be $3,000 a year. It'll be the same pay that the farmer gets there. It'll be the same pay that the mechanic gets there, and it'll be the same pay that anyone else gets there. They'll all get the same amount of money. And several thousand doctors and nurses a year apply to work 60 hours a week for $3,000 for the opportunity to practice medicine in a setting that doesn't stink so badly. I want to tell you 5 things that seem to be happening because of this movie for us. First, I'll tell you the thing that's happening for the world. I'm astounded for how such a simple, and it is really a simple statement of compassion and generosity. Real compassion and generosity is so much more complicated than the movie was able to offer. That was nursery school. That's your first day of compassion and generosity. Real giving, if you went, say, took clowns into war in Bosnia, then you get more of an upper level idea of compassion and generosity. It's amazing that such a simple expression of it became a #1 movie in America. I mean, in the history of cinema, it's not a very good movie. But there's such a desperation for anything resembling a message of kindness that even the most simple version of it does well. I've been less critical of the simplicity of the movie. As I've noticed that probably since the movie's come out, I've gotten 5,000 to 10,000 letters from around the world of people who've seen the movie and started a project to help other people as a based on that film, which is worthy enough for it to have been made. Also, thanks to people's generosity, maybe some of yours tonight, if you'll put into a bucket back by the book sales, that we are breaking ground next spring, and in 4 years we will open with exactly the fantasy hospital that we want to, and that's thrilling. When the movie came out in December, Gesundheit Institute, which is what we are, was debt-free. We owed nothing, and 28 years of relentless fundraising on my part, and I tell you, I am relentless. 28 years of working round the clock with practically no vacations. In our $25 million building fund, we had $6,000. A very bad record. I made more than that tonight. So Gesundheit will never be poor again, and we will build our hospital now. Another thing that it will do is it will build our orphanage and sustain it in Moscow, and our orphanage and sustain it in Russia. For 15 years, every November, and any of you could come, I require no experience. I've taken ages 13 to 80, and you come and spend 10 to 16 hours a day uninterruptedly for 2 weeks in hospitals, orphanages, prisons, and nursing homes, cheering people up. And that work led, once we found the abuses in the hospital or in the orphanages, to us wanting to do orphanage work there. I'm sure you can understand in yourself, a child 10 or 11 years old, that you know that that orphan director, as soon as they can, will sell it to a businessman for sex to make a little money on the side. But some of you, like me, wanted to have a place where that didn't happen. And thanks to the consequences of this film, 2 little places like that will happen in Russia. A 4th thing that is not a very expensive thing, but by freeing me up from having to make the funds for Gesundheit, I will now go to cities where the corporate medicine is trying to take over the community hospital, or where it already has and is thinking about leaving anyway, that I'd like to take a group of people who would go in for a 3-day vision quest with that city and show them that there's a way to make that community hospital be beyond their wildest dreams. And finally, in a way, for a clown like me, the most exciting thing that'll happen in a selfish play way is that we are in the process of getting a 747 airplane. And we'll call it Clown 1. Although some had suggested it would actually be Clown 2. I hate to humiliate clowns that way, though. So let's call it Clown 1. And Clown 1 would be equipped and have a staff so that any group in the world would sign up for a week, say this week. And their job between now and the time that their week comes up would be to arrange 200 health professionals and clowns and musicians and support people. And on their week, Clown 1 would land in their country, anywhere in the world, and they would take those people to the worst disaster that was in the world that week, to make a house call on that disaster, and to bring medicine and love and fun right into the heart of that disaster. And we have found our plane, and I know soon that we will have the plane and be able to do that. And I hope some of you will imagine the Long Beach week. We're in Long Beach, right? Good. The Long Beach week. So those are the consequences of that film. Imagine how exciting it is for me. It's not really more exciting than the years that we tried to make these things happen, and that people, you know, no one would talk with me about it for the first 16 years. I literally could get nobody to talk about our ideas. Now it's really easy, thanks to pop culture. I stand up here to let you know, ladies and gentlemen, that no one is more important than you are. No one in history is bigger, better, of more importance than you are. You are a great instrument for what it is that you dream. If in those dreams it is peace and justice, there is a great need in the world for that. Your effort in doing that may be the effort that is needed to finally throw us over into a world with peace and justice. It is desperately needed. The forces of capitalism, the forces of greed and power are geared towards our extinction in this next century. And I invite you to say, however much you've enjoyed your life, that you're not going to let that happen to the future of other people, and that you're going to find a way in your own life to make compassion and generosity the thing you base your success and your wealth on, and not on how much stuff or power that you've been able to accumulate. Now, before I throw it open to questions, would you all like to see my clown character? You know, I did all these characters. For 20-some years of clowning, I had a lot of characters. Maybe because I'm a Gemini, maybe because I'm crazy. But I didn't think one character would be enough, and that I wanted to be able to do a lot. And then 15 years ago, I started going to these hellholes where there's so much pain and suffering that I figured I wanted to design a character that could go anywhere without needing the language, and could go to that place, and no matter what the horror was, to bring love and fun into that moment. I looked in human relations and I said, what is that? What is that character that can do that? And it seemed to me, we're all brothers and sisters. And so I thought of all the human traits that can take a 6'4", 200-pound, fairly imposing person maybe, and making him into a harmless and person that could go anywhere, and to soften it up. So I chose the trait of innocence. Nice legs, eh? Oh. Oh. Hello. Hello. Hello, hello. Oh, fish. Fish is my friend. When I'm lonely, hold the fish to me. Feel gooey inside. Yeah. Love to go to the shopping mall. Take my fish for a walk. I stand in the hallway shopping mall. I watch people go by. I introduce them to my fish, you see. And for some reason, or no reason at all, I flick a fin. I enjoy it. Oh, sometimes I see a person like this one, and I walk towards them. Yeah, I like people. People are nice to me. They let me do anything to them I want. So I saddle on up to them, get real close. And you know, I reach down, hold a shirt, and I look him in the eye in a friendly way.
can do it for an hour. I'm not shopping. I already have a fish, you see. Oh. Oh. What? Would you like to see my fish swim? You would? Okay. Pay close attention. Can you see my fingers? These ones? I take my fingers, I pinch my fish, I swim. Swim over here, turn around, swim the other way. I know what you're wondering. Where's my dark side? I'm going to show you. Are you ready? Dead rat. I just told them my dark side. I hope I didn't lose them all. Well, if I had more time, I'd introduce you to my ducks. But better bring cats back here. Oh, thank you very much. You know, I'm a very uninhibited person, but he's really uninhibited. He has been naughty, and he never even knows it. But I love what happens to him in places that I myself don't have the right equipment to go when somebody is hurting. Okay, so I think we have a little time. Oh. Before I do the questions, got to show you my love of poetry. I am a literature fanatic and have read huge amounts of the world's poetry, drama, and fiction, and have about 4 hours of poetry memorized, because sometimes you need something said a particular way that without that kind of organization, it's hard to say it all. So I wanted to give you a poem or two, just to show you if you don't ask questions or say things during our conversation, I recite more poetry. First, a poem about clowning by E.E. Cummings. He didn't title his poems. One winter afternoon, at the magical hour when is becomes if, a bespangled clown standing on 8th Street handed me a flower. Nobody, it's safe to say, observed him but myself. And why? Because, without any doubt, he was, whatever first and last, most people fear most. A mystery, for which I've no word except alive. That is, completely alert and miraculously whole, with not merely a mind and a heart, but unquestionably a soul. By no means funereally hilarious or otherwise democratic, but essentially poetic or ethereally serious. A fine, not a coarse clown, no mob, but a person. And while never saying a word, who is anything but dumb, since the silence of himself sang like a bird. Most people have been heard screaming for international measures that render hell rational. I thank God somebody's crazy enough to hand me a daisy. And second, a poem by the woman from Poland who recently won the Nobel Prize a couple of years ago, Wisława Szymborska. This is her poem, True Love. Know a lot of love poems, because boy, those poets are good there. Let me tell you something about that movie. Damn it. You know, a sonnet only has 14 lines. And that sonnet of Pablo Neruda's, number 17, in the 100 Love Sonnets to his wife, that they tried to recite in the movie, they didn't get it right. They dropped a line. Lordy. So, no poet in this country makes their living from poetry. It is yet another humiliation. This is her poem, True Love. True love. Is it normal? Is it serious? Is it practical? What does the world get from two people who exist in a world of their own? Placed on the same pedestal for no good reason, drawn randomly from millions, but convinced it had to happen this way. In reward for what? For nothing. The light descends from nowhere. Why on these two and not on others? Doesn't this outrage justice? Yes, it does. Doesn't this disrupt our painstakingly erected principles and cast the moral from its peak? Yes, on both accounts. Look at the happy couple. Couldn't they at least try to hide it? Fake a little depression for their friend's sake? Look at them laughing. It's an insult. The language they use, deceptively clear. And the little rituals, celebrations, the elaborate mutual routines. It's obviously a plot behind the human race's back. It's hard even to guess how far things might go if people start to follow their example. What would religion and poetry count on? What would be remembered? What renounced? Who'd want to stay within bounds? True love, is it really necessary? Tact and common sense tell us to pass by it in silence, like some scandal in life's highest circles. Perfectly good children are born without its help. It couldn't change the world in 1,000,000 years. It comes along so rarely. Let the people who never find true love keep saying that it doesn't exist. Their faith will make it easier for them to live and die. Okay, let's talk. I'm curious what you're curious about. If you're nosy and can project your voice, we'll talk. Otherwise, I recite poetry. Yes, ma'am. What's that? Am I bipolar? Of course. I'm tripolar. I may be quintupolar. I am mad as a hatter. I just have pride around it. Somebody else, yes. My passion in order to get where I am right now. One, I had a fabulous mother. When they say, yo mama, they mean my mama. My mother gave me self-esteem, and once you have self-esteem, everything is possible. My father died from war. I was a child. My closest classmate in medical school was murdered by one of our patients. I've had many guns in my face. I was beaten up many times in the civil rights movement. So the thing that my mother gave me did not protect me from it. It made me feel it really deeply. Violence. I've never been violent. When my father died, I was 16. I lived overseas. We moved back to America. I moved to the South in 1961. The civil rights movement was going on. I was telling Mike Farrell backstage, we're old friends, and I was saying that the most astounding unanswered question for me with all people is, how is it that anyone looks and sees injustice and doesn't then, thereafter, make a commitment to a lifetime of working for justice? I think flipping out really helped in being sick, because then I found out that no matter how much love my mom gave me, I was vulnerable, that I was not a strong, that I was a meek, that I needed people very clearly. I needed the love among friends. And in the mental hospital, I made 2 commitments that I have lived every day for 36 years. I made a commitment to serve humanity in medicine, and I made a commitment to never have another bad day. I have not had a bad day in 36 years. Which would probably make me polypolar. I have to work for peace and justice. I cannot get the idea that we're just foolish enough to become extinct. And all those children out there, my own included, both my children were in the little clip you saw, is that I have to work for peace and justice. I've never struggled for it. I've never sacrificed anything for it. I feel it's a great privilege to not have things in my life that interfere with that work. And so I've never burned out. I don't know discouragement. When you wonder how it is I've stuck to it all these years, all I have to is imagine what it would have done to me to work in the modern healthcare system. And to know that I'm not strong enough for that. I'm not strong enough to be silent. That if I don't speak up, I hurt. You know whether or not when you're silent, you hurt. I've not been silent. And I tell you, all along the way, I've made friends. I regularly correspond with about 1,600 people. There may even be some in this room. I followed all of my dreams. I think I mentioned earlier, I can't remember the last time I did something I didn't want to do. And at the core of it all, life is fun. If you add up all of the misery that ever happened and all of the evil that ever happened in human existence, it doesn't begin to approximate the miracle of life. The miracle it is to kiss, which is the greatest opportunity we have in life. The miracle it is to have conversation, to be in nature, to be in the arts. Unlike the mayfly that lives 12 hours, for us to be given the privilege of huge numbers of hours to play our little foolish life out. I'm in that privilege. Maybe I can have a poem here. I always feel these poems come up. This is a poem by the poet, American poetess, Liesl Miller. It's called An Unanswered Question. Ever since I heard that poem, I instantly memorized it, and it's been haunting me, trying to understand how it happened. An unanswered question. If I had been the lone survivor of my Tasmanian tribe, the only person in the world to speak my language, as she was, if I had known and believed that, for who can believe in an exhaustible language? And if I'd been shipped to London to be exhibited in a cage, as she was, to entertain the curious who go to museums and zoos, and if among all those people staring and pointing and laughing and making their meaningless sounds, there had been one thoughtful face, a woman, say, sympathetic, that might have instinctively understood the one word I could not let die, the indispensable word I must pass through the bars of our mutual incomprehension. What word would it have been? That actually happened. They took the last survivor of this people for a museum exhibit in the most civilized country in the world at that time, so they said. Wow. You're all wondering what your word was. I heard actually love sung out there, and I thought love was a description. I needed an action, so I said kiss. Because you can sit around and think about loving. You have to do the kissing. So you keep your word. Anything else? More poetry? Maybe you want to know how that poem actually was from the movie. Yes, ma'am. I admire many individuals who care. And I admire parts of things. Last year I went to Cuba and I admired that they had no nursing homes. Anyone in here want to end up in a nursing home? So let's get rid of them all. There was also a country where parents felt comfortable day and night in their children hitchhiking, which I wondered what we wouldn't trade in this country to have a safe enough country that we felt safe with our children hitchhiking. And it's more what I saw there in terms of community rather than the country. You know, there are aspects of it that I would change. And I see different things. I mean, mainly what I see are individuals caring, and I like that. You know, greed and power have infected the whole world. And it's doing extremely bad things that you don't, I hope you don't carry as long a list about a knowledge of what is unhealthy in our world as I do, because it would help you not do much to change it. I'm obsessed to do something because I cannot live with not doing something. I don't know how to do that. Where are we doing? Yes?
What are your thoughts about dying?
Thoughts about dying. You mean like general thoughts? Or my dying? And I'm facing that right now. I get several death threats a week. I try to keep it in the same humorous vein that you took that. At 54, I feel I've lived enough life and the rest of my life is dessert. And that I feel ready. I don't have any idea about a next life or a reincarnation. I'm a very earth-plane person. You know, if this weren't so nice, I might think about something else. But this is so nice that that's what I think about. And since you can't know nothing, I'll only, in my consciousness, know something, which is this life. And so that's how I think about that part. You know, I'm a basic biology guy. Born you live, you die. You know, what you do with life is what's so important. The death that concerns me the greatest is the death people live who aren't loving life. Cynics, whiners, you know, people who go around bored or lonely, afraid in a world with 6 billion people, a quality of nature that is staggering, a history of art that is staggering. That anyone is miserable is beyond my understanding. And so the death in life that Coleridge explains so well in Rime of the Ancient Mariner, water, water everywhere, nor any drop to drink, where that really concerns me much more than the actual death part. You know, Wallace Stevens in his poem Sunday Morning has a line he repeats twice, death is the mother of beauty. That's a whopper, isn't it? Death is the mother of beauty. What he means there is that if you didn't die, your appreciation for what life is would be very different. It's that you die. And people who face like a heart attack or a cancer diagnosis usually are the clearest people with that truth, where just walking down the street becomes a holy moment, that every gesture, and that should be there for all of us. It isn't. Usually it takes the idea that we're dying to suddenly remind us that we're dying, when in fact we're all dying every day, one day less. So I really want people to live this life. Emily Dickinson said in her poem, because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held, but just ourselves in immortality. So we die by ourselves, I mean, unless there's some tragic thing that has a collective death. Mary Oliver in her great poem, When Death Comes. God, am I burning you out with the poetry stuff? Okay, let me give you 2 fabulous death poems. Hey, relax about death. For crying out loud, death has a lot of bad publicity. We die for crying out loud. Damn. I wish we were as concerned about living as we were about dying. If you're not working for nuclear disarmament and ending violence, then you like death. You like the violent ones. Okay, first Pablo Neruda's poem. He didn't title it, but here will make you think about death. He had this written, I'm sure, for his wife when he was worried about being assassinated, and he wanted to make sure that if he died suddenly, he wanted her to think this rather than, oh God, the rest of my life is meaningless and a bummer. Okay, here's the trip he laid. This is a hell of a trip, too. Feel it. If I die, survive me with such sheer force that you waken the furies of the pallid and the cold. From south to south, lift your indelible eyes. From sun to sun, dream through your singing mouth. I don't want your laughter or your steps to waver. I don't want my heritage of joy to die. Don't call up my person. I am absent. Live in my absence as if in a house. Absence is a house so vast that inside you will pass through the walls and hang pictures on the air. Absence is a house so transparent that I, lifeless, will see you living. And if you suffer my love, I will die again. Feel that trip. I mean, I can't imagine someone loving the person they are leaving and not thinking that poem. How long do you want your loved one to suffer your death? And if you suffer my love, I will die again. And here's Mary Oliver's poem. She's living. When death comes, like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins out of his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut, when death comes like the measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like in that cottage of darkness? Therefore, I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood. And I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each person as a flower. As common as a field daisy, and as singular. And each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending as all music does toward silence. And each body a lion of courage, and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say all my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world in my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I've made of my life something particular or real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. Somebody else? Yes. And what? What are your religious beliefs? My religious beliefs. About an hour. Religious beliefs. I'd like to make some distinction. Religion is a social institution. Faith is a personal experience. I grew up Army Protestant, which isn't much of anything. You know, Army had Protestant, Catholic, and Jewish, and they lumped all the Protestants in one thing and they didn't want to offend anybody, so they made it really generic. I mean, in some cases it starts pretty generic, and it really got generic. So I grew up with no religion, no faith really. And when my father died, that seemed like some kind of catastrophe. Then I went back to America, and I was, you know, would at least take my mom to church. And it was in the South, and it's all white church. And I saw them say in the church, love your neighbor, and all the wonderful things that are there. And then I heard in the reception a kind of language I had to correct, because I would not tolerate that language and not speak up. And I saw a level of hypocrisy that made me wonder if there were any Christians in the lot. And so I left anything resembling religion on that day. Then, after I got sick and found that friendship was the thing that saved my life, my friends, mental hospital, it was really the fact that I knew I had love, and it was obvious Rudy did not have love, that I became pretty humble for how much I need love and friends. And so, metaphorically, you could say that when I heard the word God and I heard people talk about their relationship to God that were full of faith, I heard them using the language I described for friend. And so friendship became my God. And then historically, as we moved through life, in the 60s they said God was love, and I liked that idea. That was a God I could cope with. Moving away from the guy with the beard, which didn't make any sense. And then the clincher was when I was a doctor and a student in training. I remember the event really vividly. I was in an emergency room, and there was a family who had just found out their child had died in this very suddenly and very tragically. And I knew that the medical school certainly didn't teach me anything to do. As a matter of fact, they acted like I should avoid anything to do, was their way of dealing with it, or let the nurse do something. At least they wanted somebody to do something. And I noticed on their bracelet that it said Baptist. And I went, what the hell? I said, why don't we pray? So I got down on my knees, and I took all of the clear language around my God, which is friend, and all my memory of what I understood my Protestant upbringing to be, and it came out in their language. And I saw it give a relief to that family that a doctor prayed with them around their Christ. And I saw it relieve a quality of suffering that I hadn't seen in my medical career yet. And so what happened to me, very typical of myself, is that I had to, one, know what I clearly loved with full surrender, which are humans. And I simply needed to know how to have that come out in the language of the faithful person I was with. So when I'm with a Buddhist, I'm a Buddhist. When I'm with a Baha'i, I'm a Baha'i. When I'm with a Hindu, I'm a Hindu. And I just really like all of the expressions of surrender and love. When I'm with an atheist, I'm an atheist. I just become the thing of the person I'm with. And the reason I feel I can speak with sincerity is that I have something that matters like that to me, and I call it friend. And so that's, I'm not sure if that's, would you say that's an answer to your question? Well, I know for a lot of people, they want something otherworldly, and I, you know, as I said, I'm a very earth plane person. I have no experiences outside of this world in this life. Is it over? Is it over? No, this gentleman. Okay, we'll stick it out. Hey, feel free to go. What matters is that we'll hang out here when you can't take it anymore. Yes?
Was there ever a time you felt that the world would get the best of you?
Was there ever a time I thought the world would get the best of me? The 3 times I was hospitalized, 17 and 18, around my father's death and around racism and then around the whole thing, the big picture, I didn't think the world was getting the best of me. I thought that I didn't want to live in a world that seemed to like being mean so much. It seemed like you either were going to be mean or miserable, and neither of those things were that attractive to me. And once I became intentional, see, I'm all about intent. Once you have intention, then all you have to do is choose among your alternatives for which performance of that intention you're going to do. So from the moment I left that mental hospital until now, 36 years later, I have been intentional to the max. And you know, the world is my oyster. I've never felt the world is anything but my oyster, because I know that I can go in any city, anywhere in the world, and get a dinner invitation and a place to stay in 15 minutes, because I am involved in humanity. Therefore, never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee, and that means me. And so, no, it's once I made the decision to be intentional, everything else has followed. And has been easy, actually. It would be hard not to do that. I have no idea what the time is. Are we after 9? Are we like way after 9? Can I give you a couple more poems before we close up shop? Okay, we'll do 2 quick questions, this person and that person, and then I'll give you some really quick, and then, you know, send you on your way. What's that?
Do you write any of your own poetry?
Do I write any of my own poetry? To Susan.
What's your prescription for the you owe me attitude?
What is my prescription for the you owe me attitude? Are there kids here? Oh. Let me rephrase it. You owe me. Did you have a specific you owe me experience in mind?
Don't all of us in this culture feel like we need to extract something to feel like we're alive or something? It's like, not in the lifeless sense, but like, you know, we're not going to live and breathe unless someone else is dying or something.
I mean, I don't think anyone owes me. I mean, I have no debit and credit system really in my life at all. I won by being born, you know, and, you know, then you add kissing. You know, how could I be owed something if I'm also being kissed? You know, get your priorities. So no, and as far as somebody else feeling that I owe them, I might. Sure. Can I write you an IOU? I can honestly say I've never in my life experienced guilt. I have no idea what guilt feels like. I'm neither Catholic or Jewish. I find it impressive. I find guilt to be very impressive behavior, but I cannot imagine the actual feeling of feeling guilty. So I'm willing to be the reason for all your problems. I'm willing to be the person that owes you everything and have it not harm me in the slightest. I never feel like I do anything from owing somebody, because I don't owe anybody. I act from my personal desire. And, you know, no one that sticks their head out as much as I do doesn't have people condemning them. You know, there wasn't a single positive article about me that came out after the movie. All the reviews pretty much panned the movie as an F or a D. And I got a lot of articles sent, and so I just suppose that they didn't know me, because I'm not a bad person. You know, I bust my butt and I do the best I can. And so I just don't feel I owe anybody. You know, I owe myself a lot. I want to myself be the best instrument for peace and justice I can be, and I want to never take a break from it. And so I put myself in that effort, and I think I don't sleep much because of it. And so the O thing is not very important to me. What I'd like to do is I'd like to give you two poems. They're number 16 and number 17 because I want to correct the movie.
You're phenomenal!
Relax. These two poems are dedicated to the person I love, and I hope that you love somebody someday or right now like I'm loving and being loved. Number 16 in the 100 Love Sonnets book by Pablo Neruda, the most read poet in the world this century. Fabulous man. Wonderful poetry. All 98 other ones in the book are like these two. I'll first do 17 to correct the movie, and then I'll do 16 because it's my favorite. I do not love you as if you were salt rose or topaz, or the arrow of carnations the fire shoots off. I love you as certain dark things are to be loved, in secret, between the shadow and the soul. I love you like a plant that never blooms but carries in itself the light of hidden flowers. Thanks to your love, a certain solid fragrance risen from the earth lives darkly in my body. I love you without knowing how or when or from where. I love you straightforwardly without complexities or pride. I love you because I know no other way than this, where I no longer exist, nor you, so close that your hand on my chest is my hand, so close that your eyes close when I fall asleep. Number 16. Susie, I love the handful of the earth you are. Because of its meadows vast as a planet, I have no other star. You are my replica of the multiplying universe. Your wide eyes are the only light I know from extinguished constellations. Your skin throbs like a streak of a meteor through rain. Your hips were that much of the moon for me. Your deep mouth and its delights that much sun. Your heart, fiery with its long red rays, was that much ardent light, like honey in the shade. So I pass across your burning form, kissing you, compact and planetary, my dove, my globe. Thank you very much. Please go out and serve the world. We're in the lobby. My books are there, and I'll probably, for a little while, I'll sign books up there and do whatever, press flesh. I wish I had time with all of you. And please, ladies and gentlemen, forget me. Remember ideas. Ideas are intoxicating. If you liked anything tonight, what you liked were ideas. You liked thinking.
please do that. And if around those books you just want to donate for the hell of it, we'll take that too. Thank you.